Here's Trevor Matich. Is all that really true? I know you wrote this down for me. No, you didn't. But is all that true?
Yeah, it's all true.
Wow.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, when you think about it, when I was your age, when I was a kid, I never would have guessed that anything like that would have happened, because I was growing up in school, one of the smallest kids in my class. I was slow, I was uncoordinated. I was the last kid picked at recess for sports. Sometimes they wouldn't even pick me last when they played. Sometimes they would choose teams and then leave me standing there by myself and go play. The teacher had to make the other kids let me play at recess. And so I wasn't the guy that you would expect to be able to grow up and do these things. I never expected it. A lot of things came together because of it, a lot of lessons learned, but I feel very fortunate and very blessed.
Yeah, in fact, you were a late bloomer, right? And I always am moved by these type of stories where somebody, it wasn't, you know, some of these guys, like LeBron James was on the cover of Sports Illustrated at 16. I mean, you just knew there was something great in his future. But sometimes there's the story of the late bloomer where the light doesn't go on until maybe senior year in high school.
Yeah, no, I was under a wet blanket the whole time. Every school team that had cuts, I'm talking about from elementary school through high school, up until my senior year, I was cut from every school team that had cuts. The only ones that didn't have cuts, football, let me be on the team, but I never played up until my senior year. And so by the time my senior year rolled around, I've been cut from every team that could cut me, never played, and now what should I do my senior year? Because this whole football thing was not working out for me. So probably logic would have said to have quit football and just enjoyed my senior year. And I'd love to tell you that I was a positive thinking, forward thinking guy, but I wasn't. I was just too naive to understand that I should have quit. So I went back out for football, and that year, for the first time ever, I earned a starting position on the school's team. I started at center, and I made All-City, all Northern California, it was in Sacramento, was nominated for High School All-American, and got scholarship interest from about 60 schools. It's a pretty good year, right? But it wasn't that year that made it happen. It was all the other years when I wasn't any good, because I wanted to be good. So I would come out early to practice and do little drills, and I didn't do them well. I fell down a lot. My nickname in Scouts was Surefoot, because I would trip and fall over things that weren't there. But I wanted to be good. So by the time I went from a short, skinny kid, freshman year in high school, to a tall, skinny kid, senior year, I had had hundreds of hours of working on my footwork and working on my football, and when the door finally opened, I was prepared to go through it.
So how does that happen? How do you go from those stories to a first-round pick in the NFL?
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of it is being fortunate, being healthy at the right times, but really it is just a matter of going the extra mile and doing things that other people are willing to do. Because football might not have worked out for me the way it did, but I developed habits in showing up early and doing all that stuff that are success principles I learned in everything. You know, Herm Edwards will be here to speak later on in this weekend, and in talking with him, he'll tell you that success principles as a player and coach that he implemented in football are the same ones that he teaches people in business. I do the same thing, because if you just change the word from sports to business, or from sports to family, or from sports to faith, it's all the same principle applied to different things. And for me, that manifested itself by wanting it badly enough to work harder than anybody else was willing to work. Make sure that work was smart work. And then, if the door opens, I'll be ready to go through it. If the door never opened, I will take that to other things. And you talk about those 8 Emmys. You know, I do a lot of extra work in broadcasting, a lot of extra work. And a lot of that, the recognition comes from the results of that.
Anybody heard of Javon Hay? Anybody remember him at Vanderbilt? He came in our studio a couple days ago. He just came out with a book. He published it himself. And I was telling Trevor before we got up here, spent about 30, 45 minutes with him. And you can tell Javon was driven by people telling him he wasn't good enough, or he was too small, or you can't do a book, or you can't publish your own book. So did you use a lot of that as your drive? Was that your motivation, or how did you do that? How did you handle growing up and not always being the first pick, not always being even close to the first pick.
I wasn't the cool guy either. I mean, since I couldn't do sports, I thought I wasn't worth anything, and I wasn't the cool guy. And so people didn't bother telling me I couldn't do anything just because I was too quiet. I was over here. Bullies didn't bother me much after grade school because all I did was sit in the corner and not say anything. Really, when it comes down to it, I was less motivated by people telling me I can't do something and more motivated by people who believed in me. Coaches that were good coaches, that know how to motivate each individual kid and don't treat every kid the same way. By the way, if any coach ever says, I treat everybody the same, wrong. That's wrong. Everybody is held to the same standards, but every kid has different things that they respond to. Me, I responded to you saying, Trevor, this is what I need you to do, this is how I need you to do it. And then when I do it and do it well, tell me that I did it well. And I will redouble my efforts to get that next compliment from the coach. And that's how I respond.
Anybody seen the movie Vacation? Chevy Chase? Anybody taking little jaunt in the car across the country? Anybody ever done that? It's not in my future, I can tell you that. This guy just did an 8,000-mile journey across the country, visiting coaches in schools. So, with that being said, please tell us about your journeys east, west, north, and south.
This is my own car, my own time. I do college football for ESPN on Sports Center and College Football Live, etc., studio stuff. So every year I take off around the country, and I want to see the coaches and players when they don't have the pressure of the football season. If I go even during spring practice, they have practice coming up, media requests, and they just have their media hat on. I go now, I can sit in an office with a coach, his office, and just talk football. I can sit down with coordinators, offensive and defensive coordinators for 2 hours going over tape on what's happening. What are the latest trends in college football? How are you responding to those trends? How does it really work? And so I do that. And there's a lot of fun things that happen when you go that you wouldn't get from a phone call. For example, I was at TCU in Fort Worth, Texas, and walked downstairs into their training room as part of a facilities tour. And I saw big giant tanks made of nitrogen. They were not made of, but said nitrogen on these tanks. I've never seen that in a football training room. So I of course, asked what it was, and it turns out they have something in there called a cryosauna. This is a big tank that you step into. They close the door on you, and they fill it with nitrogen gas. That drops the temperature to negative 240 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 240. So the idea is you get in there for a maximum of 3 minutes if you can stand it, right? And it fools your body into thinking that you're about to die of hypothermia. And the body, in that case, wants to protect the core organs, so it sacrifices the extremities. It constricts blood vessels in the extremities to force the blood back up into the core. Well, in the cryosauna, this happens. Then when you step out 3 minutes later, you're no longer freezing to death, and all that blood that is pooled in your arms and legs and extremities over the course of a hot summer workout, all that blood now is up into the core, it's reoxygenated, it's filled with new nutrients, and it goes back down into your arms and legs and muscles, and it happens in a matter of minutes, and it helps improve or speed up recovery after workouts. And so I got in it, of course, and it was cold. Of course, and actually, if you go to my Facebook page, just Trevor Matich, YouTube channel. I just got a new YouTube channel. In about a week or so, I'm going to put video of me getting into that cryosauna up there. But little things like that are just tremendous fun. And to me, it's the joy of football. The season, to me, and doing the task of TV is fun. But to me, it almost gets in the way of the real fun stuff, which is just playing around with the players and the coaches and the toys. You know, because that to me is the part of the joy of football.
And you get to hit things. Did you do that in Starkville?
I do, yeah. Mississippi State, they just opened up a $22 million football facility, and the weight room is literally enough for 3 football teams. It's massive. They were just finishing installing the equipment. And I walked in there, and there were boxing heavy bags, big 100-pound heavy bags, hanging from all the squat racks. Now, I've seen one in a weight room, football weight room, but I've never seen a dozen of them. So the coach told me, strength coach, that they use that for a couple of reasons. One is to train aggression. They wail away on this thing. They just thrash this heavy bag. They get it on the ground, they ground and pound, they just hit the heck out of this thing. It's just wild mayhem. But, and this is the important part, it's not wild mayhem, it just looks like it. Because there are times when the strength coach will then give instructions to the player. Left, left, right, right, left, left, left. And so now this player has developed all this violent aggression he's taking out on this bag, but he's got to think and follow instructions and do it right.